Okay, this afternoon I'm with Tim McLoone, musician, marathoner, restaurateur, owner of 12 restaurants in New Jersey. Good afternoon, Tim. How are you? How is your family?
The family's good, mercifully. That's the one good piece of news, but the
That's the
rest of it,
one.
not so good.
I guess maybe in this climate you'd rather be playing music than running restaurants, wouldn't you?
Well, that funny part is I miss that too because I play a lot in our restaurants and I don't even get to, although 3 nights a week I actually am playing from the restaurants, but by myself. Although, as I've said many times, I'm used to playing to an empty room. That has happened to me many times in my life. So
I don't
not
know
the
if you
only
you know
time.
I'm a fellow musician myself. I played in a band for many years, not as prominent as you, but
Which one
sometimes.
was it? What
It's
was
a
the
band,
name?
it was a band called the E. Walker Band back in the late six no yeah late '60s '70s. We played mostly New York
Yeah.
clubs in
And what were
North
you
Jersey.
playing?
I
Yeah.
played the piano. Similar to you, I played the piano and
Wow. What kind of music were you doing?
all rock and roll music. A lot of
Yeah.
covers, and we used to do original music. One night a week, CBGB's tracks in New York. We used to, play the
Oh,
originals up
wow.
there. Yeah. So, but we're here today. You
See,
you
what you didn't
uh,
realize is I'm actually interviewing you.
you what? You're interviewing me.
No, I was saying I'm actually interviewing
It's good.
you
It's
right
good.
now.
It's good you turn the tables for it. That's good.
We'll do that.
Look, I like to start this interview out with a quote that I saw that you had. It was reported. You said on March 16th we had 12 restaurant locations, and it's if they all burned down to the ground on the same night, and we have no insurance. Now you've been in this business since 1987, but I guess these set of circumstances are the most difficult for you.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. There was a thing, Jim Gaffigan, the comedian, did a thing yesterday on the word unprecedented, which makes me hesitant to use the word unprecedented now. But it was crazy. And it was as if we had no insurance. Even the business interruption insurance that we and many restaurant holders had was ruled inactive because it was, a pandemic. It's an exclusion, rather. So there you are with nothing. We laid off over 700 people the next
Wow.
day because which some people thought was kind of heartless, but the reality was I thought it was important to get them on unemployment as quickly as possible since the indications were that actually in many cases, and it's turned out to be true, they would make actually some more money on unemployment than they would with us because of that supplemental $600. And we all anticipated that there was going to be a logjam. So the attitude was like, get them on the unemployment line as quickly as possible, or and as it ended up, as you know, I wouldn't say that it crashed, but it just moved so slowly. We have one or two employees who still haven't gotten their unemployment, but
You 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 furloughed
it's
you
a horrible
fur
thing.
you furloughed or laid off 700. How many total employees did you have prior to this outbreak?
Well, that's what it was basically at that time of year, but it was March.
It was March.
We more than double it in the summertime. It closes in on 2,000. And obviously most of them are part-time workers, college kids, high school kids, tipped employees.
Right.
But a very high percentage of those 700 were the core of what we do, the people that work with us on a year-round basis, obviously, or they wouldn't be working with us in March. And everybody on that restaurant chain, at least in this area, takes a hit in the wintertime. We all do it, including our vendors. I felt terrible that, we owe a lot of money to, the fish guy and the produce people and all the rest of it, because we've been in business. It's a shame to be this old. We've been in business for 33 years and they know that we're good for it. And so we get very extended terms, 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. We talk to people all the time. Yeah, you always catch up. It's great. So guess what? This year, we're not going to catch up. And so that hangs them out. And they need their money. It's just up the chain.
Well, that's one thing everyone overlooks with the restaurants. The lights were turned off without warning. All of a sudden, the governor says shut down at 8 o'clock tonight, and restaurants do carry purveyor debt, 30, 60, 90 days.
Yep.
and they're still going to be able to carry out when they need to reopen. So it's been really tough for the industry itself, you know.
Well, it couldn't have been a worse time for it to happen, time of year, because it was March, where we've been losing money since, some point in November, November, December,
Right.
January, February, March, you lose money. And then not only that, but in March, April, and May, you start spending more to get ready for the theoretical season anyway. And, so you're painting and fixing things, buying furniture, whatever you're doing. And so we were in the middle of that part when all of a sudden it was like zero. And, I worry. I don't want people to think that, we're feeling sorry for ourselves. I mean, right now, the whole country is experiencing this to varying degrees upon which industry you're in. So we're, in a sense, no worse than anybody else. But we know that there is a subtext to this with the restaurants. And to me, it's two things. One is there's the social side of it. I was doing an interview the other day, and I said to the interviewer, I said, well, you know how it is. When you want to meet somebody for something, say, hey, why don't we meet at lunch? And we'll go to that little cafe around the corner. There's a social part to this that's very important for people. And that's all gone right now. And the fear we have, I think, in the restaurant business is that to some extent, we're going to be the last to open. We in theaters, as things get relaxed, they might say, yeah, you can open up. You can have 25% of your seating. Yikes. It's unsustainable. It's not sustainable.
I noticed that until recently, maybe a week or two ago, you weren't even open for takeout or pickup or curbside.
Right.
Just open.
Yeah, we did it for a little bit until our perishables were gone, and we gave away the rest of it to fulfill and lunch break and Red Bank, things like that, to some of our employees, and it just wasn't going to work, and we're not set up for it anyway. I mean, I think in some ways, and I hope this is true, I think a lot of pizzerias who've been doing delivery for 100 years, they may actually be doing well, and that would be great if somebody was winning during this. But for us, we really had to rethink the whole thing through. To Go was growing in our company, but I would dare say it was less than 2% of what we were doing. So we took a few weeks off. We got the PPP funds, and we opened up last week at 7 locations.
What kind of a process was that? What kind of a process was that, getting the PPP funds? Did you have to? Was it difficult for you? Was it challenging?
Well, I'm very fortunate. I'm very fortunate that I've got a couple of really good people in my office who are diggers. A woman named Christy Hansel, Tim McMahon, Lauren Cotu, my wife Beth, and we were on it from the beginning every day. We reached out to some politician types, but the problem was our bank. We're with Investors Bank, and we've loved the relationship with them. It's been absolutely great. They support Holiday Express, our charity. Everything's been great. They were not set up to do PPP like many other banks. So it's small business association loans, and a lot of banks don't like doing those. So they, like one time we got an SBA loan 25 years ago, and I realized it was with a bank in Utah. Because the bank I was dealing with didn't want to do it, so they found a bank that would do it. So Investors Bank was not set to do this, and so it delayed it by a good 3 weeks. But fortunately, they stood by us, and we stood by them, and we eventually did get funded about 10 days ago. But it comes with huge strings. First of all, it's a loan, and you can get 75% of it forgiven if you bring back all of your
employees. Oh, we got Tim was a little frozen there for a second.
Yeah.
Tim, let me ask you this question. How about the restaurants where you have under lease? How the landlords been treating you? Have they helped you out?
I think everyone's been reasonable to speak with, but everybody has their dilemmas too, because most people think of landlords as solely owning properties, but in most cases they have mortgages. So their bank is saying to them, where's your money? And they're saying to us, where's your money? And I'm in essence saying to vendors, so we own outright only one of our places, the Rum Runner in Seabright. That we own that property. We own a bunch of liquor licenses, but everything else, as you say, is a lease. We talk to the people at Pier Village, the people down in Asbury Park, and everybody is looking for a formula that's a win-win. So I think what's going to happen, although we do not have a finality on this, is we're pushing to go to percentage rent. When we first went to Asbury Park 14 years ago, we didn't even know what we were going to do. And we were driving down the highway, and Asbury was sort of starting to bubble up, but it was a loser at the time. And so by the time I got there, I was like, I don't know what we should do. And then the owner, or our landlord, was basically saying the same thing. So we settled on percentage rent back there. And we did it for 4 or 5 years, and then we eventually converted it to a square footage rent. I think we're going back in time, and that's what's going to happen here. We're going to pay a percentage of our gross sales, and our gross sales are not going to come anywhere close to where they were before. So it's going to be a problem. In the summertime, it might be reasonable to get to some level, but once we hit September, October, it's going to be terrible. And so we're all going to have to deal with it again. Will there be a second funding of the PPP? Will that get it? I mean, it's 8 weeks. That's all you get.
I know, that's all you get.
And we're 3 weeks in, so.
Well, that leads me into my next question. Assuming a partial reopening, and let's say that date is June 1st, whether that partial reopening be 25, 33, 50% of restaurants, how long do you anticipate until restaurants will be at full capacity again?
My hesitation means that I don't know the answer to that. And the honest answer is I have no idea. And we all know that it's two things. One is the technical epidemiological, is that the right word? From a health and safety standpoint, there's that side. And then on the other side is people's willingness to go to a place. Are they worried about going to restaurants in general? We could have a list of 28 things on the front door that we're doing, and we are doing them. As you know, restaurants have actually been much cleaner historically than people know, much cleaner than their own homes. We have to go through a whole bunch of things that the Board of Health inspects on with regularity to make sure that the temperatures and the refrigerators are where they're supposed to be, cleanliness in general, pest control, we do this all the time. Our chefs work with gloves on. So it's been going on all along, but are people going to say, is their desire to go out going to overwhelm their worry about what could conceivably happen to them if they go out in public? And we don't know the answer to that. But all I know is that, the margins in the restaurant industry, a really successful place does somewhere between 10 and 12% of their gross can fall to the bottom line. Maybe if you've got a great business model, it's 15%, but 10 to 12 is kind of what we always aim for. And if you take away, I don't know, 30, 40% of our business, there's no way we get to that 10 to 12.
Yeah.
It's not possible. So it's not sustainable. Our mantra right now in our company, and we have a lot of supporters, people like our brand, we have some advantages maybe some other people don't have. Our mantra is we want to be here on June 1, but June 1 of 2021, not June 1 of 2020. Can we be still standing a year from now? That's the question.
But right now, as you and I talk, Tim, you feel that the restaurant industry in New Jersey is providing a better community service by staying closed or by being open?
Wow. Well, what I worry about is that people will push the envelope and do some dangerous practices. I'm a believer in the regulations. I think that it's perfectly logical about gloves and social distancing, staying in your home. I believe all of that. I believe the Murphy administration and the New Jersey Restaurant and Hospitality Association are working as hard as they can. We may not agree with either of them, but I believe they're putting whatever brain power they have fully to figure out what's the right thing to do. And, it's one size doesn't fit all. The restaurant industry is different than, having a law firm or whatever. So, everybody's watching us. But what if people just sort of go rogue and start behaving inappropriately and packing out a bar where you're not even supposed to have your bar open? I don't know. I think a lot of it comes from the fact that if you're 21 years old, as my kids are in that area, chances are you're not going to get it. But what you don't know is, are you spreading it? and there's no proving that one way or the other. So people get emboldened, on the boardwalks. I'm hoping that the boardwalks don't get swarmed. It was a little chilly this weekend, even though the weather was nice. So I think it kept the numbers down a little bit. But what if the boardwalks swarm and stuff happens, and then they've got to back up and say, nah, we're going to close the boardwalk. We're going to close the beaches. That would be really bad.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's the biggest problem is the uncertainty. Nobody really knows for certain, what's going to take place and when it's going to take place.
Well, I just I don't trust people, to be honest with you. They shouldn't trust me, I guess, either. But I don't trust people that they're going to toe the line here and pay attention to the regulations. When you read about what's going on around the country and people arming themselves to demand their freedom of speech and movement, please, are they not paying attention? Particularly here, obviously, New York, New Jersey. I mean, we got crushed. And, we lost somebody in our family last Sunday.
Oh, sorry.
An older woman, she was 93 years old, but she wasn't ready to go yet, but she got the COVID-19 and that took care of that. And, I hope we never get to a place like that terrible movie with Charlton Heston, Soylent Green, where they just put it was a terrible movie, where they put a time limit on you, come on, you're 80, you got to go. See you later. We have to protect all those people. It's your grandparents and I don't have grandparents anymore, but you know what I'm saying? It's all of our relatives.
It is.
You just don't want to toss them.
Well, there's two schools of thought on that demographic. I agree with you that, the maybe the 21 to 35-year-olds who think they're invincible, as we did when we were that age, right? They might be not conforming to the rules as they should, but the adults that are in their 40s and their 50s and their 60s, they can make a decision for themselves, I think, whether they want to go out and sit at a restaurant and have dinner. If they don't want, they can stay home.
I think that's where it's going to go. If there's a little bit, if the numbers keep declining and there's a little bit more of a window, I think you're absolutely right. And I think that's what will eventually happen. But I do believe we're going to be instructed that in the beginning, it's going to be 25% and then 50%. And that just means that a whole bunch of restaurants are going to go out of business. Maybe we'll be one of them. I mean, one of the companies, I don't know.
Well, I certainly hope not, Tim, because you've done a great job over the past 30 years. So
think about this too. Think about what restaurants do, local places, corner places, pizzerias, all the rest of it. How many Little League teams they support, and glee clubs and choirs and scouts. It's a big thing.
Well, you mentioned before, let's meet for lunch, but it's more than meet. People have met their wives and husbands in restaurants. People go there to celebrate special affairs, birthdays, anniversaries, all of that restaurants, have been serving us and feeding us and being the special place to go for so many years. It's a shame that, the hit this industry is taking right now. And just, hopefully it'll be able to resurrect itself, which the next question I'm going to ask you mentioned you want to be here June 2021. What do you think the restaurant landscape is going to look like June 2021?
Well, I think the largest operators will survive. I don't know about the large chains, because they're not owned and operated in most cases. They've got franchisees, but I think it's going to be a question of the strong survive. I think there will be a lot of dropouts, and then they'll either sell them to someone else or it'll sit vacant for a period of time, and then it'll come back. In my opinion, the demand will always be there. It's arguable that there were too many restaurants recently, and I think part of that was the Amazon effect, where people who might have in the past opened up a hardware store or a clothes shop or shoes or something, they opened up food because it's all they could do, because retail was getting clobbered. I mean, you saw with JCPenney and any number of other ones who are going bankrupt. What is a ma and pa going to do if they can't open that little shop? Well, let's open a deli. So like in Red Bank, where we've been very fortunate and done really well with our Robinson's Ale House, all you see is food places opening up there.
Yeah.
Not now,
True.
obviously, but as you rightly say, the landscape is, it's hard to predict what it would be like, because we don't know what the demand is going to be, and that's what it comes down to. What's the demand? Are people going to say, I got to go out? I got to, I got to go hear some live music. I got to go see my friends. I mean, how do you even do a band? I have a 10-piece band. I'd like to see the stage we could perform on 6 feet apart.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
and for whatever reason, I never stopped playing. I couldn't do it, Rich.
Well, that's a good point. You take, how about all these catering banquet houses that are having 150, 200, 250 people in a room with a 10-piece band? They're going to also have to take a step back, because I don't think people are going to want to gather in those large groups right away either.
Yeah, we banquet is a large component in 3 of our places, and it doesn't exist right now. Many people are rescheduling. They're pushing it out 6 months, a year out, and sticking with us. But there are others who are not, and you can't blame them. I mean, it's their special day. If they don't want to wait a year and a half to get married or something, they're going to do what they've got to do.
Mm.
Beach clubs, the same thing. What's going to happen here? We don't know.
As a veteran in this industry, Tim, you've gone through the downturn in the real estate market in the 90s. You've gone through 9/11 in 2001, another recession in 2008, Hurricane Sandy in 2012. What advice can you share with your fellow restaurateurs right now?
Well, the dangerous word is optimism. And I am the proverbial eternal optimist. My father always told a story about my brother and me. When I was a little kid, I was probably 4 or 5 years old. I was going to go to my first ever Major League Baseball game at Ebbets Field, because that's how old I am. Go see the Dodgers. And it's Saturday morning and it's raining like crazy. Apparently my brother and I were in front of the window, and my brother, who was older, said, "Just my luck. I knew it was going to rain today." And I was saying, "I think it's clearing up." It didn't clear up. So, advice, you have to be careful about your optimism, because it just can't be foolish optimism, which I am absolutely guilty of sometimes. I can see the end game and I just assume I'm going to be able to leap to the end game. And this will be the all-time challenge of that. I think that in our office, there are basically 5 of us who run this company, that there are days where we feel kind of optimistic, and there's days when we're like, this isn't going to work. And then the next day we're optimistic. I think controlling your emotions is the biggest thing. Being relentless. One of the good things we did was, aside from the PPP, we also got involved with the EIDL loans, EIDL. And a number of people have done that. We received a pretty small amount of money. And then the Secretary of the Treasury announced they were cutting the funds by 90%, 90. Which, holy crap, that we thought was going to be our big bailout. It was a loan, but it was a 30-year loan at 3 3/4%. So it was like getting a brand new mortgage. You could sort of buy your way till next year, and they cut it. So it looks like instead of getting, whatever, it's going to be a small amount of money. But I think accessing everything, being smart, and I have a tendency to put my head in the sand like anybody else. I don't want to hear the details, because it's too depressing. You have to marry the details, stay relentless, and then let that optimism creep in, because all entrepreneurs are optimistic people. You wouldn't do it. You wouldn't do it if you weren't optimistic on some level or other. And just not to be foolishly optimistic, which I'm guilty of a lot of times. And the rest of my company has to remind me of that.
Tim, it's tough out there for the restaurateurs, and we being in the industry from the outside, having dealt with the restaurant industry for almost 40 years, 80% of our clients are in the restaurant industry. We decided that we're going to try to put a task force together of restaurant operators to share ideas that will be beneficial when preparing to reopen, whenever we find that date. And we have other restaurateurs that have committed to that. Would you be willing to join us at small?
I'd be happy to. I've always wanted to be on a task force.
Right.
This sounds like we get tanks and
SWAT team. Yeah.
I want to be on a force.
maybe we get some uniforms and badges, so you'll feel better about it.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I'd be happy to help, you know.
Well, thank you. We could use your experience. You know, before we end, Tim, I don't want to leave because you know what? As I said before, restaurants have been serving people. You've been serving people for many years, but you know, restaurants also do so many things that are behind the scenes that people don't realize in serving their community. And you know, you've had a program since 1993 called the Holiday Express, where you assemble hundreds of volunteers to create free holiday events for groups who are in need of some good cheer between Thanksgiving and Christmas. Can you tell us
Yeah,
a little bit about that and how that's
sure.
going
Well,
forward?
yeah, it started in '93 and it was a real small thing out of my kitchen. And it was basically me calling up my musician friends and saying, hey, do you want to go up to Newark on Christmas Eve and play to the homeless up there and do a little holiday party? And I was working for the New Jersey Nets at the time, the basketball team, who are now in Brooklyn. And so we went up there with them, and that was '91 actually, and it really kind of touched me. And the next year we went back, and there was no music the first time, and the second time I brought a boombox because I'm a genius, and I was playing like Johnny Mathis, Christmas tapes, But it really touched me, and I can remember driving home that night on Christmas Eve. For those of us who were raised in a either Christmas or Hanukkah, environment in our lives, and I was thrilled that I'd actually been helping other people on Christmas Eve. It seemed appropriate. So I talked about it for almost a year. And one of my friends eventually was like, are you going to do this or not? Just stop talking about it. So it started out very small. The first year we had maybe 17 musicians. We did 10 shows, and we would go to places, and we didn't really know where to go yet. And it's obviously changed over the years. This would be our 28th year. And we do 100 events between the beginning of November and Christmas Eve. We still go up to Newark on Christmas Eve. And we go to places. There's two ways to get us. One is if we're not there, you get little or nothing at the holiday time. And that's long-term residential psychiatric facilities that are suffering right now, homeless shelters, soup kitchens, AIDS hospices, places like that. Or the need is so great that we don't care if you're getting attention. And that's mostly people with cerebral palsy or who are just, stuck in very difficult physical circumstances. And what we do is we bring them a band, but we also bring them all our wonderful volunteers who dance with them, hug them, paint their faces. This sounds like something that could never happen again, the way we're talking about it. But, and we give them gifts and we give them food. We've got incredible people. Joe Leone jumped on board with us a few years ago. And Jersey Mike's has been absurd with us. They make us handmade 7,000 to 8,000 subs every single year. It's incredible.
That is incredible.
And the Windmill people, everybody knows them, Steve and Rena, and our own restaurants, obviously. So we try to throw them the biggest party we can. And, it lasts for about 3 hours a year. And I would dare say, as I sit here speaking with you, that we get more out of it than they do. It's been an honor to meet these people.
Well, God bless you and your whole group for doing that. I guess that's what it's all about. And we can see even during this pandemic, how we have to sort of sit back. We're locked down, but still people are reaching out and helping others. And we hope that can continue when we break free. I want to thank you for your time today, Tim. I've known you for a while. You're a very, very genuine guy. You say you're a very optimistic guy. I really hope this ends soon for you, for all of our fellow restaurateurs, and for every American. Just one day at a time. Keep the faith.
That's it. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you, Tim. We'll be in touch.
It's good to see you, even this way.
You too. Have a great day.
Okay, you too. Bye-bye.